Hi, welcome to Inside the Sound Chamber. My name is Don Simmons. I'm very happy to have with us Tony Nec. Tony is has the Sound Healing Academy, and Tony has a really interesting path to get to where he is. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but Tony actually has a diploma in shiatsu and Oriental medicine. He continued to explore science and art of vibrational, energetic, informational, psychological, and spiritual healing. He has been working with people, teaching, working in the world of sound healing for some time. And I'm very grateful to have Tony Nec here and at the 2024 International Sound Therapy Association Conference. Tony, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, Don, it's a real pleasure to be with you here today. And also, I'm really looking forward to the conference coming up soon in September.
Sound, the world of sound and sound healers is blooming like never before. And, it's very important, I believe, that people are being trained properly. And that's sort of what ISTA is looking at, being that gold standard of who is doing the real work that we can count on and depend on. And I do believe the work you're doing with Sound Healing Academy and the people you have trained are really doing the right thing. So let's take a step back with Tony himself. And I like the idea of the creation story. Where did it begin with you?
Okay, well, I think there's probably two threads to that. The very first one is that I was born actually in Malawi in Southeast Africa. And I lived on the edge of what was quite a large town in those days. It was about 100,000 people. And so the house we had was next to, probably within just a few hundred yards of an African village. And so a lot of my childhood experiences involved me hearing the sound of drums, dancing, music, laughter coming from that village. And there's something quite kind of like deeply rooted in me that connects with that. So that's one thing. The second part was a little bit later on, when in my teen years, when I was at a boarding school in England run by Catholic Benedictine monks. And this was an abbey school where, so the monks were actually the teachers as well. But there's a whole group of monks there who basically that was their job, so to speak, of being monks in the abbey. And a lot of their practice involved going into the abbey building and singing Gregorian chants. And so this was now in the early 1970s. And so I was very fortunate that I had the opportunity to be in their presence inside this amazing acoustic chamber and hear and experience the power of this Gregorian chanting. And I would say it transported me into different realms of being, different realms of existence, a kind of a transcendent experience, you could say, that has lasted with me throughout my life.
Is sound or music something that you had intended to do, or, with a degree in shiatsu and Oriental medicine, it seems like you were going in one direction, but you got pulled into another.
Well, I mean, at school, I joined the school choir, and so the singing particularly has been a large part of my life and constantly there. But yeah, I mean, in those days, sound healing, I guess, was only just really getting started, very in embryonic form. And so it wasn't particularly widely available or known about, or there wasn't really any training in it. So so I was drawn to something that I just experienced essentially through a kind of like a taster type workshop, which was the shiatsu and Oriental medicine. And then I just felt like, oh, I really want to be doing this. I really felt drawn to being much more actively involved as a healer, essentially. And so I went down the pathway of doing like the 3-year diploma in that, and then practiced with that for many years. But of course, that has an energetic basis. It's based on the concepts of Chinese Oriental medicine with the meridian energy theory that underlies acupuncture, the 5-element theory that's there as well. And so that became very much part of my DNA, so to speak, and my makeup. But then with the sound, the transformational experiences I had, and then when I was at university, maybe this is the third element, I actually got introduced to the power of sound in a different way, this time through Tibetan Buddhist monks. And so I engaged in, in quite an in-depth process with the whole process of Tibetan Buddhist meditation for many years. And of course, mantra chanting, along with the visualization, everything is a really important part of that. And so the sound element had always been there, throughout my life, the singing, the mantra chanting, and within the meditation context. And so it was natural when sound healing training kind of emerged in the UK in the early 2000s that I went along and I did my practitioner training at that time through what was called then the Colour of Sound Institute. But we changed the name to the Sound Healing Academy in 2016. I took over in 2010 and started getting active with the training and teaching a couple of years later, really more like 2012. So we've been really going at it for the last 12 years now with the Sound Healing Academy. Yeah.
That's really phenomenal. I know some of the people you have trained and you have trained them well. They're doing really good work and really, again, bringing quality sound therapy into the world. And, a lot of people like yourself, felt that drum in Malawi and in the chanting in the Benedictine monks. And there's something visceral that takes place with us when we first hear that and we recognize whatever we do as healers, that sound carries us even deeper into the aspect of healing. And so congratulations with that. We're really excited for you to be with us at the conference. Now, you're in England now, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
And you're gonna be in England during your presentation. I don't know how you're doing this. This is crazy. We're gonna zoom you in. We're gonna zoom you in.
That's it. That's it. It's the power of technology, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
It is.
I'm looking
So
forward to it. Yeah.
I think this is going to be really exciting. This is the first time we've done this kind of thing, bringing someone that's far away to us via technology. You're going to be speaking on Saturday, 10:30 a.m., 10:45 a.m. In East Coast time. And your presentation is called In Sound, Beyond the Relaxation Response, Regulating Our Default Mode Network for Improved Health and Wellness. Talk to me a little bit about where you see the relaxation response and getting beyond that and what your talk will sort of be about.
Yeah, thanks, Don. And thank you for your kind words about the quality of our training and all of that. It's absolutely true that it's fundamental to the quality of who we are and what we do in the Sound Healing Academy, and the quality of our training is absolutely important. And these days, we just started this year, but there's something called the Trustpilot, which is an independent review. It's a bit like the thing that you get for reviewing, food accommodation and all of that kind of thing. And we've got nearly 200 independent reviews like that, and they're excellent, 4.9 out of 5, right? And so we've got all these people going, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And that's all on our website. So that's just a little thing there. I mean, in terms of the talk, there's different components to it, and this is what I'll be covering in the talk. So the first thing is that little word in sound. So what's that? Okay, so firstly, what we mean by in sound is two things. One is that it refers to what we call integral sound healing, which is our kind of unique approach to sound healing that we teach in our practitioner training. And then it also refers to this kind of movement that happens sometimes when we're deeply listening to sound or music, and what can happen is that it's almost like we enter into the sound. It's not like the sound is out there and we're listening to it and there's a separation. It's like we enter into it and there is no separation. There's just a oneness of the experience. And that's a kind of an example of everyday non-duality as I see it. And so in sound is like an important part, and that's a lot of what it's about. So there is this more spiritual kind of mystical element to it, you could say. But really, what I'm wanting to talk about is more the scientific part, because I think a lot of people these days are increasingly looking for, well, what does the science have to say about this? How can we be informed by the science? How can we improve what we do and how we do it by the scientific research, the evidence base that is emerging here? And although it's in its early phases, you know, there is significant things going on that we should pay attention to. So when I'm saying beyond the relaxation response, what I'm referring to there is the research, the studies, the practice that was initiated by Herbert Benson in his 1975 book, The Relaxation Response,
Right.
which emerged after he did a whole series of research from Harvard based on the experience of transcendental meditation, right? And what he discovered, and then later went on to do a lot of work with, is that there is a particular part of the brain's limbic system, as it's called, that can be activated or regulated in a certain way, which triggers this relaxation response, which is the opposite of the stress response. And so what that means is that there's a physiological effect caused by that process that is automatic, that is part of the autonomic nervous system that is affected. And, you know, the sympathetic aspect of the nervous system is diminished. The parasympathetic is increased. And as a result of that, there are physiological changes in, for example, in our heart rate. And so that's become now a bit more widely known about and accepted within the sound healing community, we could say. So that's a kind of a baseline. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, that is all really good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to understand how we can work with sounds to achieve a regulation of that in a better way. And we have various courses about all of that as well. But in the last 2 decades, there has been an emerging neuroscientific research base around what is known as this default mode network, which is about really other structures in the brain other than the limbic system. It touches in with the limbic system, but it's a separate part of the brain that is more to do with the cortex and different parts of the cortex. And this is otherwise known as the resting state network. And so what I'm going to do in the talk, because there's a lot of detail to get into here, but in the talk, in the conference, I'm going to talk about, well, what is this default mode network? How does this relate to sound healing, right? To make that really specific link. And then what can we learn from the research that's been done over the past 20 years to inform how and what we do in sound healing so that we can better regulate this default mode network to achieve greater sense of wellness and healing and health and so on, vitality.
You know, sound healing is so, like I said, you know, it's really coming into its own. And this kind of work, this kind of research like you're doing, these kind of presentations like you're giving, really gives more credence to what we do as sound healers. And, you know, science is part of who we are. We are heart-based individuals, but we also have a brain, and we have to bring those two things together. I remember years ago when massage therapy was considered, you know, a bad thing. And, you know, it was like, really, how does that work? And then hypnotherapy was, you know, nothing you could really talk about. And now both massage and hypnotherapy are really respected industries. And this is where we are with sound therapy. And that's that next phase that's really coming through.
Absolutely.
And by really understanding, and I really love that you're bringing in the relaxation response, one of the first things that I read many years ago, and how we can increase that relaxation response methodically through sound therapy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as I see it, the relaxation response and the default mode network, they're like together, right? They're like 2 pillars on the, you know, I don't know what.
Right.
But you know,
The
they're
big
like
cosmic thing of called
that's
us.
it, you know, they're two pillars of the cosmos, right? And so I think that we need to understand how they work together, but also what are their separate functions, and it's like getting smarter about both, you know. But I
Yeah,
think a lot of people, more people are more aware of the relaxation response angle. Not so many are aware of the default mode network.
right.
And and I think that's what I'd really like to introduce and get a discussion going, because there might well be people there in the audience who are a bit switched on this already, and it'd be great to have a discussion around that.
Yeah.
As
I
well.
was looking at some of the people that are coming to the conference, attendees, and we've got a wide range from people who are real professional sound therapists doing the work out there that have been trained one way or the other. And we've got also what I like to call sound curious people that are really interested in what is this? How does this work? But they have been at least practiced or aware. They're not coming in like, oh, we're gonna dance or what we're gonna do. They're coming in knowing that sound therapy exists. And so we've got a fairly sophisticated group of people coming. And this is really awesome. And to have you there, another one of the sophisticated teachers, long standing, coming in. So we
Oh, I
appreciate
do
that.
appreciate what you're saying. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be a really great conference, I'm sure. It's going to be
Yeah.
exciting to be there. I'm sorry I can't be there all 3 days, you know, for it, but at least I'll be there virtually.
You'll
So
be here
sometime.
virtually. That's really exciting about that. And we'll try to get you to come in for another conference live and in person.
There we go.
We'll do
There
that.
we go.
Tony,
Thank
is
you.
there anything else you would like to add before we go?
Not really. You know, I think it's a great opportunity. I think I really do. You know, when you're talking about the heart-based thing, you know, I think that one of the things to recognize is that a lot of the physiological outcomes of this scientific kind of stuff is actually relates to the heart in a physical sense. And the way I see it is that the heart has a dual function. It's not only you know, got the physical characteristics, but it's also got a wider kind of more mystical, spiritual sense as well. And when we refer to practices being heart-based, I think it involves both the physical and the more metaphysical aspects as well. And so, although the science might sound a bit like, oh, you know, it actually comes back to that ultimately as well.
I think you're absolutely right. It is the perfect marriage of head and heart is what we're really after. Tony Nec, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you virtually on Saturday, the 21st, I believe, at 10:45 East Coast time. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tom.
Be
Appreciate
well.
it.
See you
See you
again,
again
pal.
soon.